Rhapsody in Blood, Chapter 8, First Part. Blistering heat skimmed past Meg's waist and chest. The girl turned around. Standing there was a woman dressed in Auntie Maple's clothes. The reason her identity couldn't be absolutely confirmed was because everything from the neck up was missing. A massive hole also gaped in the left side of her chest. Not even glancing at the body as it felt like dead wood, Meg turned once more toward D'Argent. Wearing a wonderful smile like she'd never seen on him, he lowered the hand of destruction. Meg didn't say anything. "Hear that?" D'Argent asked in a hushed tone. Meg nodded. Countless footfalls were drawing closer from behind the man. There'd been more than 2 vampires on those tables, after all. "Hurry up. Go. Leave them to me. I'll hold them. Got enough energy left for that." It was unclear if the former teacher was referring to himself or his weapon. D'Argent sluggishly swung around so that he was facing the direction of the footsteps. "This time, for real. Goodbye." His voice was bursting with a firmness and righteousness the girl hadn't heard from him before. This was no longer the place for Meg. "Goodbye," Meg said, starting to walk toward the doorway. After she'd gone a short distance, she turned back and shouted as loudly as she could, "See you, teacher." It was unclear whether or not her words reached D'Argent's ears. Nothing came in return from that world, already sealed away in milky whiteness. Stepping out into the corridor, the girl shouted, "To the front hall." The scene around her didn't shift. "What's wrong?" "Take me to the first floor lobby." Though Meg stomped her feet, the world maintained its motionless silence. Some force was at work, halting all energy-based transportation in the enormous facility. Countless corridors up ahead ascended, descended, and intersected, all of them being drawn into the depths of the blue light. No matter which one she chose, Meg got the feeling she, too, had no choice but to become a part of that blue world. "In that case, I'll take this one." Planting her first foot in a corridor continuing in a straight line, Meg started running. Because just then, she'd noticed a strange presence approaching from up ahead. Reaching for her hip, Meg clucked her tongue in disappointment. She wanted to look for a place to hide, but even the black wall of the room she'd just escaped had vanished. She was like someone who'd been abandoned naked in a wilderness teeming with wolves. Before the girl could start to think about what she should do, the presence took shape. It was quite a few figures who formed a circle as they headed that way. One of them sailed into the air, lashing out with a stark blade in mid-flight. A cry of pain rang out and was gone. Falling to the floor in a bizarre pose, the figure instantly disappeared. Several more figures charged into the center of the circle, reeled backward and vanished. But now Meg saw the cause. The edge of the ring had closed to about 15 feet from Meg, but from part of it that had broken, she got a full-length glimpse of the foe they challenged, who was destroying all comers. He was dressed in black, and his looks were so gorgeous he seemed to glow like a jewel in this world of blue. D? Shadowy figures leapt from all sides. From what Meg saw, their incredible bounds were every bit as skilled as they were powerful. Yet artless swipes of D's sword left their heads sailing helplessly through the air, and crashing to the floor with sprays of blood, playing out the poetry of death. Meg counted 17 foes reduced to dust, and then Dee sheathed his bloody blade and stood before her. But the girl remained there stiff as a statue. The fight had been so fiercely one-sided it had left her stunned. Even wounded, a Dhampir would be able to slay his foes. However, to all appearances, Dee hadn't suffered so much as a scratch. Since the girl said nothing, the hunter asked, "What are you doing?" The instant that icy voice entered Meg's ears, the spell over her was broken. "Actually," the girl began, not really telling him the situation so much as rattling on about it. The instant she finished her account, a terrible shame swept over Meg, and she turned bright red. She was embarrassed to have exposed so much about herself to this exquisite man. For all the girls wondering what he'd say to her, it ended up being, "Get out." "What?" "I'm going to destroy this facility," Dee told her. "Hurry up and get out of here." "No. Folks from my village might still be here." "It's too late for them." That's not for you to decide. How do you know that?" "Because that's the nature of the nobility, and I reviewed the operational data for this facility. There are no longer any humans here." "That can't be," Meg murmured, and her eyes caught the sounds of several sets of footsteps. She didn't know whether or not it was the same ones off the tables, but a number of people were running that way. "All the facility contains is former humans," Dee said. Meg got goosebumps. She knew what he had meant by that. "Go or you'll see things you wish you hadn't," Dee said, his eyes no longer trained on Meg, but rather gazing past her head and into the darkness behind her. "No, I'm staying here." Dee stepped forward without a word. The events of the next few seconds were a nightmare for Meg. The figures came running, each with a sword or beam cannon in hand, but they were reduced to stains on Dee's blade, without ever landing even a single hit on the hunter. Meg knew a number of them. The rest were probably members of the party of settlers. He wasn't the sort of opponent newly changed nobles could handle. As Dee sheathed his blade, he saw the girl sobbing, one corpse cradled in her arms, while she clasped two others by the hands. "Your family?" he asked. "Dad and Mom and my little sister." Meg clamped her jaws together. Nevertheless, her voice forced its way through her teeth. "You killed them. You left me, all alone in the world. What are you going to tell me they did?" "It's what they would have done next. They'd have become bloodthirsty demons and attacked humans. Just as you saw." "Yeah," Meg said, squeezing the word out in a mournful tone. Her father, mother, and sister had all sported fangs. When they attacked Dee, they'd be nothing but beasts starved for blood. And that wasn't all. On noticing Meg, her mother and sister had closed in on her, and even now they had their hands out in front of their chest as if to pounce. They seemed to say, "We want your blood, Meg." "If they're allowed to reach the human world, the number of pseudo-nobles will increase geometrically," Dee explained. "Their line must end here." "Just do whatever you want," Meg said in a dazed tone. "But I'm bringing the bodies of my family back with me. I'll take them back to the village and bury them there. Don't try to stop me." Dee stepped forward without a word. The door there was still open. Slipping in quietly, Dee looked all around. Beyond a doubt, this was one of the nobility's labs. Once upon a time, tens of thousands of humans had been sacrificed there in bizarre experiments. On learning that, the hunter had crossed over to the island and destroyed all its facilities. Nobility and humans alike had been relegated to the flames. But all that had been resurrected. Toward what end? Mizuki Tandorian, why did you and your staff have to rise from the dead now? No, there was more to it. Behind these eyelids, there floated a ridiculously large figure in black. Was it you? He asked. Are you the one behind these resurrections? Do you intend to make the same stupid mistakes all over again? Dee pressed on to the back of the laboratory, coming to the control panel for the energy furnace 6,200 miles below. Page break. When Dee came back out less than a minute later, the scene that greeted him was one of gray dust dancing, vainly, in the breeze, and nothing more. Both Meg and her family's bodies had vanished. Saying nothing, Dee went back down to the first floor, the same as the lobby. First part end.